Welcome to Unconscious Evolution, Caroline. It is absolutely amazing to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine.
Let me go ahead and share a little bit about you with our listeners. Caroline Pennington is a LinkedIn coach teaching female entrepreneurs how to start, grow, and scale their personal brand and business on LinkedIn. She's the podcast host for The Feminine Founder, and she's also the founder of Chilled Vino. I bet a lot of people might come knocking on your door for that. But everybody, Caroline's contact information and social media details are listed in the show notes. So please reach out to her. She is just the sweetest, most wonderful person. So, Caroline, thank you again for opening your personal life to all of us today. What would you like to share? And has anything new come up for you over the last couple hours as you anticipated being here?
I'm actually excited to do this because, as you mentioned, I do have a podcast, but I keep that more professional. So I don't go into the personal piece that much. And so this will be a good opportunity to actually showcase that side of me.
Oh, I love that. And that's one of my favorite things about this platform and really creating this show is to pull people out of the work that they do because we're so used to having interviews and being on podcasts and other type of things and talk about the work we do. But there's so much more to who we are and how we got where we are. So where would you like to start?
Let's start. Okay, I'm going to start with my professional background and career, and then I'm going to go into, we can talk about some personal questions as to like what clicked and what created the change and catalyst to actually pursuing my purpose. So back in 2010, I was looking for a job. If you don't remember, the economy was in complete shambles. So I was looking for a job. I went into the staffing agency's office and they said, "Why don't you come work for us?" And I was like, "Great, I'll go get people jobs. It'll be all roses and ponies." And it was not that. I was on the phone calling on business owners, HR managers, talking about their hiring and recruiting needs. And they were literally cussing me out and hanging up on me every other call because they had just laid off like everybody at their company. But I was able to make a successful temporary placement in my first 30 days, and the rest is history. So fast forward from doing that in a completely shamble of a market to I'm 15 years later, I'm working for a boutique staffing agency based out of South Carolina, and I'm placing CEOs, executives, vice presidents, 6, 7, 8-figure professionals in executive roles. So CEO, COO, CFO roles. And I was working with private equity companies when they would go wipe out their executive team and need to refill it, or privately held companies, and then also publicly traded companies for their executive team. So my point is I was finding these people on LinkedIn. So I decided, since I was spending a lot of time on LinkedIn for my corporate job, that I wanted to create a personal brand for myself on the platform. And I figured out that LinkedIn was not as crowded as some of the other socials, and that you could actually build an organic audience really fast without spending any money on ads or promoting any post. So I started doing that while I was at my corporate job. Fast forward 8 months, and I'm already up to over 7K followers. I was able to quit my corporate job and go all in to my entrepreneurial journey because at the same time I started the podcast, and it all kind of blew up. And I felt like during that time, I really found my purpose because now I get to help female entrepreneurs start, grow, and scale their businesses and personal brands on LinkedIn.
Okay. Wow. So we went from 15 years ago, right? And all the way up to 2024, which now we only have 2 months left, which is insane. I can't believe we're 2 months from 2025. So you make it sound, of course, so easy. Well, I got this job, I didn't like it, and then I did this, and I went here, I decided this and that and that. But I don't want our listeners to be misled and think, well, I could do that. And then 6 months later, they're not making any money and be like, well, Caroline did it. Why do I suck so bad? So what else can you share with us about that journey that allows us to dig a little bit deeper into what it really took for you?
Yeah, it's way messier than that. And it's not a highlight reel like what you see now. So if you've seen me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, everything looks like rainbows and ponies and shiny now. But again, that's after 2 years of a lot of really hard work and a lot of commitment. when I first started my LinkedIn journey, I decided I was going to post on there 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and I was going to show up every single day at 8 a.m. And I really, at the time, wanted to become the go-to executive recruiter because that's what I was doing for my professional corporate job. And so my content was actually centered around recruiting. I wanted to be considered the subject matter expert, but I had no clue where to start, no clue what to say. And LinkedIn is scary, or it seems like on the outside, because you're connected to your bosses, you're connected to your family members, you're connected to your coworkers, current and past. And so when I started to do it, it was really scary. I mean, everyone on the executive team of my current company was watching. All my friends are watching. Like, it was so visible. And I would put posts out there and it would be crickets. And it would be like, well, how come no one likes what I'm saying? And I would do polls and no one would participate. And I would do all kinds of try different things and they would completely flop. And yes, did I beat myself up like, okay, you stink? Like, why are you even doing this? But I started to really dig in on what actually was working, which in the beginning was just the little things like I got a couple likes or get a couple reshares or whatever. And then I started really focusing on those posts and that type of content. And I kept making it better and better every single time. And that's when the hard work really started paying off.
Yeah. Would you say that you had to go through some kind of personal changes when you decided to start this? Because it's one thing to, like you mentioned, so you work for a company and you're on LinkedIn and you're doing the work you're supposed to, but then you're starting to create your own personal brand. And in that, it takes time to figure out what your personal brand is, right? Because that's not something that you just devise in a plan because you spent 3 months doing it. No, it takes time. And what did you have to, internally convince yourself of or remind yourself of or, daily practices to keep yourself going? Because it's hard. The truth is it's hard work and not everybody sticks to it. So what did you have to go through?
I had to talk to myself a lot and be encouraging and be kind to myself. For me, consistency is king. And I know you hear that all day, every day on everything, but I'm telling you, once you start to build a personal brand, and by the way, to anyone that's listening or watching this, you should start building your personal brand. Your personal professional brand, it's the same. People want to do business with people, whether or not you work in a corporate job or you work in a service-based business and you're an entrepreneur. They want to know who they're hiring before they actually hire you. And the quickest way that you can supercharge that is by creating a personal brand. And you can even pivot personal brands. Let's say, so I was a recruiter. Now I'm a full-time entrepreneur and coach to female entrepreneurs and have a podcast. And I've been able to pivot the whole LinkedIn thing, once, if not twice, because of those two things. So don't get caught up if you are in a career transition or you're changing jobs. Don't overcomplicate it. But talking to myself, being kind to myself, being consistent, for me, planning was really helpful with creating and building a personal brand. So what I mean by that is I use technology and the scheduling tools specifically on LinkedIn so that if I'm traveling or if I'm in a really busy season of life, I don't have to sit there and look at my screen and say, okay, what do I need to post? It's already done for me. So when I'm feeling creative, no matter if that's in the mornings or Saturday morning, whatever time that looks like for you, maybe before bed. When you're in a creative state of mind, actually start using that to write down your thoughts. So for me, I started documenting my content that I wanted to put out there in a Microsoft Word document. So I would go in there and schedule everything out for the week following, and I would just do 1 week at a time. And so it was like going to the gym and flexing a muscle. And the more I did it, the easier it got.
Yeah. This makes me think about when I first started posting and I was, building my own business. That of course you'll get the posts that get 10 likes, if even, right? Sometimes that happens, or 2 comments, and one of them is yours with your website on it. And for me, what I had to go through, first of all, I was given really good advice by a network connection through LinkedIn who said, don't judge your results by reactions or comments. He said, the majority of people that you'll end up working with will never comment and will never react because, especially the work that I do as a life coach, it's very personal work. And a lot of people don't want to be attached to, I kind of feel like I'm falling apart right now and I don't want to like it. So people then think, oh, look, Debbie's falling apart over there because she liked Christine's post. But For me, growing up, which I've shared this with my listeners before, that, I suffered from a lack of worthiness and value. And so when you're doing this on LinkedIn, this is where that personal part comes, these personal battles and the growth comes, that I had to convince myself that there were other Christines out there that needed to hear what I was writing. And they might not respond to me for a year. They might not reach out ever, or whatever it is. And so there were those personal things that I needed to overcome. And I know that you said that you had to talk to yourself every day and you created a system. But, kind of emotionally, I'm going to, carve in a little deeper here. Was there anything for you? So, I mean, you didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. You were working for companies for a long time. So it's like, how did Caroline transition into now being this independent, strong, sought after female entrepreneur? What did you have to break through to get there? Because we all have that. Like, we all have those walls.
So on the outside, it was really shiny. From my 20s, I had a great headhunting job. I was a recruiter making, a large salary. I had the corporate benefits, like check all the boxes. But on the inside, I knew that there was more. And so I was in my late 20s. I went through a divorce. We thankfully did not have kids together. That was the transition time. I actually was not on any social media whatsoever at that time. So not LinkedIn, not Instagram, nothing. And it took years for me to go through the process of grieving that and moving forward and everything. So, but when I turned 30, I decided I wanted to start working on personal development. And that personal development actually translates into professional development as well. So once you start working on yourself, you really can start to see the fruit. So you get to know yourself better, number one. Number two, you continue to learn new skills and new things from people who have done stuff that you would like to do. And I started reading a lot of books. I think faith is important too. My husband and I go to church every Sunday. And then as I've gotten into my mid, and now I'm 37, later 30s, I think it's really important to put yourself in the rooms of people that are doing the stuff that you want to be doing. Actually network. Get in the rooms of the female entrepreneurs or the trade show that you would like to be the expert in. And actually create the connection piece. And you talk about the LinkedIn thing really quickly, and I want to go back on that. So for me, I've had plenty of things go viral on there. My numbers are large. You can see them, but those are not the reasons. I actually tell my one-on-one coaching clients, the goal is not to go viral on here because it will completely mess up your metrics and your feed. And that's not what you want. And the actual magic that I've gotten and I've given and received on LinkedIn is the connection piece.
Yes. And you know what? I can attest to that because every time I would message you, DM you, ask you a question, or just say hi, I think it was like within 30 minutes, you'd write me back. I'm like, I don't know where she finds the time or how many arms she has, but y'all, Caroline is like on top of it. She's absolutely amazing. I don't know if I can attribute it to your 30s or what. Maybe we should talk in 15 years. You let me know where you're at, but I have a feeling you're going to be just really doing awesome. Another thing that I wanted to talk about that you brought up, which is such a strong point, is that you said that you wanted to work on personal development. And personal development also meant professional development. And I think this is a mistake that we make a lot in our lives, that we think, well, it's just work that isn't going well. Like, I don't know what it is. So I'm just going to write my pros and cons lists, which, by the way, everybody, if you are writing a pros and cons list, you are telling yourself that you want to make a move. That's just my professional coach opinion. But so what ends up happening is when we attribute, we just say, oh, it's just my job that isn't going well. There's a reason the job isn't going well. Like, there's some kind of a breakdown within ourselves, within the relationships at work. Maybe there's, some toxicity, but that creates a personal damage. And so I think it's really important. And I love that you mentioned that you wanted the personal development first, and then that turned into professional development. And that's how it works. It's career coaches will always work with you about yourself and what you're interested in instead of just talking to you about your job. So what did you notice in that? So when you were personally developing and you went through a lot, in your late 20s, you went through a divorce. I mean, that's intense. That's a lot. There's a lot of grieving. There's now Caroline becoming a totally different person. So in that personal development, how did you, what was it that clicked in you that you knew? Because there's something that went, God, you are, I know you said you wanted more, you wanted better, but what was it that you saw in yourself that maybe you didn't see before?
I knew there was more, and I didn't know what that more was, and I knew that I wasn't gonna get to that more unless I started working on myself, and
Mhm.
that working on myself is a lot of things. It is the health. Are you exercising regularly? Are you eating clean? Are you I practice the 80/20 principle, so 80% I do clean, healthy, all the things, 20% is the wine, the cheese, the carbs. I do think that exercise is very important. That really has attributed to my high energy levels and me being able to DM you back in 30 minutes. um, but in all seriousness, one thing everybody asks me this question: what's it like working with these CEOs and placing these professionals in these big jobs? Number one, it took a lot of a certain type of business acumen or personal acumen that I had to have to, number one, find these people. Number two, get their attention, to message me back, to actually be engaged in my job search. Number three, to keep them engaged. Number four, to actually cross the finish line, to take the job offer that I was currently working. But for me, everyone always asks me what makes them so successful. And I think what makes people at that level so successful is they have high emotional intelligence. And how you get high emotional intelligence is you work on yourself. And I thought it was very important. I knew from my early 30s, that I needed to work on myself with gratitude, with being kind to myself, how you talk to yourself. All of those things are important. But also, especially, I've actually been doing a lot of mindfulness exercises and manifestation exercises, and it really matters. I mean, sitting on the patio outside, listening to the birds or the rain, or whatever's going on, and spending 5 to 10 minutes with yourself and actually listen to your thoughts goes a really long way.
Yes, and what those thoughts are, like you said, the words that you said to yourself. It is so incredibly important. Just last night, I posted a story on Instagram. I'm not sure if you saw it because, well, Caroline sees everything. I'm telling you, you guys, she's amazing. But I posted a story because I had just made myself some hot tea, which I do every night, decaf relaxing tea. And then I go to bed and once I'm in bed, I recite whatever the words are that I kind of need to hear that day. Most of the time, it's that I'm peaceful and at ease because I have one of those brains that doesn't like to turn off because I'm always in creative mode. And so by changing that dialogue, has made a huge difference in my life. And I started it months and months ago. So those manifestations and the words that you say to yourself in those, 5 to 10 minutes on your back deck or your porch listening to the birds, this is not, we're not offering fluff here. I mean, this is legit stuff and it takes practice, but it's extremely beneficial. What do you think your mind was doing before you were doing that? Were you instead saying, "Oh, Caroline, you should have done this instead," or all the talk that we say to ourselves all the time?
I think to add to what you just said is what we were talking about now. People say it's woo or woo woo stuff. And I think you have to have the woo and the ability to take action. You have to do both. You can't just take action all the time and not sit with yourself and sit with your thoughts and take care of yourself. You have to do both. And so to answer your question, I was in the comparison game. I need to be more like XYZ. I need to do this. And you just got to stop scrolling and stop comparing yourself to everyone else and just be you. And once you're you, you are a huge believer in energetic alignment. And I think that has to do with the clients that you attract. I think that has to do with the people you surround yourself with. And by the way, I'm going to talk about that too. It's okay if you're in a period of self growth or you're growing and you outgrow your friends. I have had this happen, several times. And it doesn't mean you're better than them or you think, that you're superior. It just means you are doing what you need to do, surround yourself with the people that are in alignment with where you're going.
Yes. Oh my God. That is such a huge point and so incredibly valuable. And I think it's what keeps a lot of people from making changes in their life because they're thinking, well, I grew up with these friends and what would my life be like without them? Well, that's where you have to stop and ask yourself the question like you did, which is what do I want for my life? Because at the end of the day, and really for every day, you're living in your own shoes. You're the one making these decisions. You're the one at the end of the night when you're putting your head on your pillow, you're like, oh, I'm miserable, but my friends are great. Are your friends pushing you? Are they encouraging you to become more? Are they helping you, lifting you? Because that makes all the difference. And yes, I went through my huge transformation a couple of years ago, and I still have the people in my life, but they're different. It's not the same relationship. And I'm okay with that because I want more. And it doesn't mean it's better. It doesn't mean they're lacking. It's just different. So I love that you pointed that out. Is that something that you end up having to cover with any of the people that you work with? Because I know that you work on building a LinkedIn brand and essentially becoming your own person. But what you do is different. But how do you tackle that when you'll have people that say, well, I don't want to say that because I'm about to have Thanksgiving with my family and I don't want them to, say this at the table or whatever it might be. So how do you work people through that?
Back to the energetic alignment, I don't take every client that comes to my way. And so I have to be able to, if we're going to work together, you have to be committed to actually doing the work. And so I don't want to work with anyone who's going to come with me with excuses like, I don't have time. You don't know what my morning looks like. We all have the same amount of hours in the day. So I want to work with individuals who actually are excited and willing and want to put in the work. And my clients are seeing amazing results. And that's what I want. That's what they want. And the clients that are just like, oh, can I just pay someone to do this for me? Like, I'm not your girl.
Yeah.
But if you are actually willing to put in the work and willing to brush off Uncle Frank at the Thanksgiving table with his rude comments for just checking it up as a rude comment, it's going to all be worth it. And then on the end, it's interesting. Like on the end, like when we finish the journey after several months of working together, like you're in a totally different ballgame with where you are with LinkedIn. And then they come to you and they're like, hey, how can we get featured? How can we get on your Friday Friends post? And it's just like, no.
Yep. That's right. You remember those that support you and believe in you because that's what it comes down to. It's the people that believe in you, but those people have to believe in themselves first. And so when those people don't, they're not able to believe in anybody else until they think you can do something for them. Right. And
yeah, in the beginning, people want to make fun of you or laugh at you because you're putting yourself out there and it doesn't look perfect. It is messy in the beginning. You're not going to get it perfect from the very beginning. So if you're going to start this journey of personal branding or growing yourself on social media or marketing ways or your business, you have to be okay with not being perfect. And guess what? People actually like that better than this perfect little tied up in a bow box. I mean, that's boring. I tell people all the time, the entrepreneurs I work with, they get so focused on their business page and they want to grow their business page. And I'm like, business pages are boring. Like they want to know you, like who is behind the business.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, people make fun of you and all of that in the beginning because it's not perfect. But then once you get into your journey, get your groove, then they come and they want something from you, or they want to ride on your coattails or be invited to your suite at the football game or whatever it is that looks like. And you're just like, no, I didn't. Forget about the beginning times when you were a jerk.
That's right. That's right. Because it happens. It really does happen. So the growth is wonderful and it can be painful because those changes do happen. So I have to say this, listeners, are you loving when Caroline says want as much as I am? Because your Southern accent comes out. I don't hear it in anything else except for that. And I'm like, I just want her to keep saying want.
It's so funny you say that because people are always like, where are you from? Because I originally am from Charlotte, North Carolina. And so that's a melting pot of all different people and accents. And so I don't really have a thick Southern accent, but I think it does come out in some words.
It does. Once in a while it comes out and I'm like, yes. So Caroline, what if you could think of maybe the most impactful thing? So at this stage in your life where you are and the wonderful position and the privilege that you are to help as many women that you are, what do you think that has meant the most that you've learned about yourself that you're like, oh my gosh, if I hadn't have done this, I don't know if I'd be doing all of this right now. What is it that you just kind of want to pat yourself on the back for? Because I think that's important to do.
I think investing in yourself is the best thing you can do for yourself. And I don't care if that means a gym membership or a coach or a program that you're going to take or a class that you're going to sign up for. You have to do that if you're going to start moving the needle for your life.
Yeah. And what is it that you did to invest in yourself?
About 2 years ago, I invested in a virtual mastermind. We were in full-on pandemic mode, and I wanted to learn how to create an online business and create a side stream of income in addition to my corporate job, because I'm big on having people should have multiple streams of income no matter what they do, because if your corporate job goes away, then you're in a really bad spot. And if you have multiple income streams coming in, you have more of a cushion and you have more insurance. And they don't have to be these massive, income streams. They can be a couple $100 a month or $1,000 a month or whatever that looks like to meet your financial needs. I think that's really important. So I took this mastermind. I invested a lot of money in it, and it was very scary. It was worth about half of what I invested in it, but I learned a lot of new skills. It was a digital course, and I was with a group, all virtual, and I learned actually how to create an online business and create a digital course. And what that meant was I had to learn new technology. I had to learn how to set up an email list. I had to learn how to be on video. And it was all really scary, but I am grateful for it that I went through the experience and did that. So that's one example. I didn't invest in anything else for 2 years after that because I was still in my corporate job. I was focused on that. And my husband and I moved down to Beaufort, South Carolina, where we live now. And then investing in a podcast mastermind was also a huge game changer for me for 2 reasons. Number one, the podcast host of the mastermind, she has this massive podcast. And so I knew that I wanted to learn from the best. So what did that mean? She wasn't accepting just anybody. She had hundreds, if not thousands of people apply. And so I shot my shot. I was like, she's never going to pick me. She's never going to see me, but I might as well do it if I want a chance. And so I applied, and she messaged me back, and we started going back and forth. And I was like, she's never going to pick me, but at least we're in dialogue. And next thing you know, I check my messages, and she's like, check your email. And I checked my email, and I was like, oh my gosh. But so I had to make a very expensive financial decision. It was $7,500. And I had to decide within 48 hours. And there was boxes I had to check before she would decide whether or not she accepted us. It was, are you going to be able to attend these group calls? She had the dates listed. Are you going to be able to schedule one-on-ones with me? So I actually had to commit to doing the actions before she would say yes or no. And then I also had to commit to being physically at a retreat in Denver, which was a 2.5-day retreat where she brought speakers in. It was literally magical. And we learned so much, but it was like drinking out of a fire hose at the same time. So investing in that mastermind was huge because number one, I learned from an individual who has a massive, massive podcast and has had a lot of success with it. And I wanted that from my podcast. So I wanted to learn from her and the best. And then she assembled a room. There was 9 of us of just literally incredible humans. And to be connected on those group calls and to be in the room with those incredible humans has been a game changer for me.
So you went from, thank you for sharing that. I love that story so much. So you went from, she's never going to pick me, right? To being in this room where all of you are equal. And that's the transformation that happens in us that we don't realize is happening. It's because you took a chance. You for a second believed in yourself enough to apply, right? And to try and get on there, even though you're saying, well, she's not going to pick me. You had enough belief in yourself to do that. And then you ended up, look where you are now. So if anything, what I would love for our listeners to take from that is Caroline was scared. She didn't think she had what it took. She wanted it, but she didn't think she had what it took. And she did. We all do. We just have to commit, and you have to do the work. Like, it doesn't just happen. You don't just apply and then magically your podcast is number 2 in the world. You have to do work on yourself. You have to do work with other people. You have to network. It doesn't come easy, so don't think it does. And a lot of that comes from the work that you do within yourself. And clearly, you've done amazing work.
Well, thank you. And yes, you have to do the work and you have to also invest the money. And was that a very expensive financial decision for me at the time? Absolutely. But was it worth it? And did I get the benefits of it back in tenfold? All day.
Yeah, all day. So, wow, that was awesome. Can you think of anything? That feels like a great closing, but any closing thoughts for our listeners?
I would encourage your listeners to believe in themselves and to start putting themselves out there, no matter what that looks like. If it's on LinkedIn, if it's on Instagram, Facebook, whatever that looks like, do it and keep doing it and being consistent with it. You're going to have days where you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just am not in the mood. Trust me, I've had plenty of those days where I'm not in the mood. but keep doing it. It is going to be so worth it on the other side.
Ah, that's so beautiful and such a great wrap up. Caroline, thank you so much again for being here today. I've been looking forward to recording with you. And everybody, Caroline's contact information, it's all in the show notes. Please reach out to her. Go ahead and time it. See if she gets back to you within 30 minutes.
Okay, whoa.
She might not. She might not. No, she's got a lot of things coming up. She does a lot of travel. So don't quote me on that, but she will get back to you. I guarantee it. So not to set a false expectation there. But thank you again. And listeners, until next time, enjoy yourself, enjoy the moment, and try to discover what your unconscious evolution is.
Thanks, Christine.